What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another Serious Angler podcast. Today, you are stuck with me, the captain, Andrew Full. Bailey is down at Lake Chickamauga practicing for the Hobie Kayak event, and he was going to join us and our guests tonight, but he lost power just recently at the Airbnb that he is staying at down there on the south end of Chickamauga near the Tennessee-Alabama border, I believe it is. So unfortunately, you're stuck with yours truly. Some things that are going on right now for the crew here. Adam Deacon from the Business from the Bass Boat is out at the California Delta, fishing the Toyota Series event. I believe he made the final day cut as a co-angler. I think he's sitting in like 10th place. He hasn't told us his standing update, but he said he made the final day cut. Bailey is chasing hardware down there at Lake Chickamauga, like I just said, in the Hobie Kayak event. Hopefully he can get his second trophy in his second, well, I think this is his third or fourth, but second trophy in back-to-back events. And then for me, I just have a lot of guide trips coming up here on Lake Erie in Buffalo. I think I counted out 19 in the next 23 days starting on Monday. So it's going to be a pretty busy June, which I absolutely love June up here. We catch them deep, shallow, any way we want, and it is just an absolute riot. But without further ado, let's get our guest on here, Bryant Smith of the TNPFL. We love getting the TNPFL guys on. We don't get them on quite enough. So without further ado, let's get him on here. Hey, Bryant, how's it going, man?
Hey, Andrew, I really appreciate you having me on.
Awesome. I'm glad we're finally able to make it happen here. So you're just down at Watts Bar. You flew home, and now you're on the Serious Angler podcast. How are you feeling?
Oh, I'm loving it. I wouldn't trade this life for anything else. Living in California, I get I get on a lot of planes to do what I do, but
Yeah.
there's nothing better than to fish for a living.
Do you ever miss leaving the boat behind?
Every time. Honestly, it's kind of depressing when I pack everything up and I get my one little bag of clothes and I realize that all of my fishing gear is going to be at least 1,500 miles away from me for the next month. Because when I leave, when I leave California to start the year, I don't come back. I can't make a pit stop at home and refill this bait or swap these rods out for a different rod. I have to bring everything I own. So when I come home, it kind of sucks.
Yeah. And I mean, you have to have some friends around the lakes that you're going to, or have at least a trustworthy person that you can leave everything at, too. So that makes it the dynamic of it pretty tough, I would assume.
Yeah. The planning that goes into these things is it's way more than I ever thought it would be.
Mhm.
But it's just part of it. You kind of just take your chances and try to do your research on where to leave the truck and the boat. And if I'm lucky enough to have a friend or an acquaintance out there, that makes it all the more easier. We do have to use storage units sometimes. I travel with Jake Boomer. I think he's been on this, and we've had quite a few really interesting scenarios leaving our stuff back there. At one point, for one of the tournaments, we had my truck at one place, my boat at another place, his truck at one place, and then his boat at another place. So they had 4 vehicles, and they were all in different places, and we had to go gather them up before the tournament. So
It's like an Easter
logistically,
egg hunt.
yeah, it was exactly like that, and logistically, it makes it interesting sometimes, but it's all part of it, and all part of the fun.
Yeah. The life of a professional bass fisherman. I do
It
not envy any of you. I always joke around. It's like, yeah, it'd be a dream to say I qualified for like a professional tour, but I don't know if I would ever do it because I just can't wrap my head around a lot of the dynamics of all the planning that goes into it. I don't even like planning for vacations, right? Like, I look at my wife and I'm like, do it yourself, and I'll just go along for the ride. So, like,
I get it, man. Yeah, it's a lot. I was the same way before I came out. out east is,
Mhm.
when I would show up just to a tournament on the West Coast, just to, I don't know where I'm staying. I'm driving there. I don't know where I'm staying. I don't know if I'm even in the tournament yet, and just let it roll.
Yeah.
And now you can't do that. You can't do that when you're, sometimes 2,200 miles away, and you got to have everything planned out.
Absolutely. Now, do you see yourself moving east in the future and staying in the TNPFL, or are you looking just to continue the wild plane riding commute and planning of boat and truck storage for like from here till who knows when?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be back east. Um, Eventually, I'll have something back there eventually, whether it's just a piece of property that I park my truck and boat on, and leave it in a garage, or we move the family out there. I'll have something out there eventually, but as of right now, my wife's 6 months pregnant, and we want to stay around
Congrats.
family. Thank you, I
Yeah.
appreciate it. Yeah, we want to stay around friends and family for now, especially with how much I'm gone. Having that support system for her is going to
Huge.
be huge. Yeah.
Is it your
So
first one?
that is our first one. Yeah, a little
Oh,
boy.
oh, that's exciting. So,
Yeah, yeah. We actually the due date we got pretty lucky on. It's right. If he's anywhere around the due date, I'll be home. So that'll be good. I mean, I'll be home regardless, but I won't be missing a tournament.
so 6 months, that puts her at what?
Just
At end of
September.
July? Oh yeah,
Uh,
September.
September, and yeah, it's right. It's right after our NPFL at Sandusky Bay, and then right before the last Southern Open at Hartwell.
Hmm, awesome. So, you're fishing the Southern Opens for bass, aren't you? Or
Yeah, yeah, I'm fishing
awesome,
those, and then NPFL, and then the Southern Opens.
awesome. That
Trying to
sounds like too
complicate
much
my
fun.
life.
Yeah, that's great with a newborn on the way too. Good thing the season will be ending so you can get home. Little fatherly advice: the first 9 months is hell until you can start sleep training.
Perfect.
My daughter is almost 3 years old, and we have her on a 7 p.m. sleep schedule. So she's in bed at 7 p.m. every night. She sleeps till 6. So if you can get on that train, do it because
Oh,
they are not grumpy.
I'll be hitting you up for some info on how to do that for sure.
So, and I'll forward you over to my wife because she has all these programs, but she's got it figured out. So
That's
we
perfect.
it
I'm
rolls.
in.
So let's digress a little bit here and kind of go back to your beginning of time before we get too far down the rabbit hole. Who got you into fishing in the first place? Like, how old were you? Your first cast, first fish? Like, lay out this story for us.
Man, I mean, so we got a lot of little reservoirs, and I'm talking like walk around them in 20-minute little reservoirs, but it's all
Yeah.
those stock trout reservoirs. And my dad would always take me to those places, and we'd go, you know, let's soak some power bait, and if we catch a trout, cool. If we don't, we had a good time. That was, those are my first memories of fishing in general. And then it's kind of funny. I was actually in my grandfather's old tool shop. He just had a little shop in the back of my grandmother's house, and I saw, he was into the outdoors, hunting, fishing, all that stuff. It didn't really matter what. And he had it was like a 1999 Bass Pro catalog. And I just started looking through it, and immediately I was captivated by the bass. And I had no idea what any of this stuff was. I had no idea who all these people were. I'm sure Kevin Van Dam was on there. I had no idea, but I was just captivated by, the lures and the bass and all that stuff. And it took me, I want to say, about a year of kind of researching and watching some TV shows. We didn't have the internet like we do now. We didn't have YouTube. We didn't have all these great podcasts like yours to kind of get some info really quick. So it was a slow process. But about a year later, I had my first rod and reel for bait for bass, and I think I had it was a little Lure Jensen speed trap. And me
Oh,
and my
nice.
family Yeah, chrome and blue. And me and my family were out on a local lake on a pontoon boat rental. And I made a cast next to this piece of wood. It was, just a stick up. I don't know. I couldn't tell you how deep it was. I couldn't tell you anything about where
Inches.
that spot was. Yeah, it could have been inches. I have no idea. And I just remembered I threw that Lure Jensen little square bill out, and before I could even reel, uh, I say it was a 3-pounder. I have no idea what it actually weighed, but it blew up on it, and I just reeled it in. And man, I mean, like everybody says, I was hooked from there, and I've just been ate up with it ever since.
Amazing. Now, oh man, it's funny. You probably wish you still had that Lure Jensen speed trap from back then because they don't make them like they used to. First point, but
Yeah,
you might still have it.
I think I do. I don't think it has any paint on it though.
Yeah, because it's probably caught so many fish.
It caught a couple after that for sure.
So let's fast forward a little bit now on like the timeline. Do you remember your first bass tournament that you actually fished, and who did you fish it with?
I do. I couldn't tell you when it was. Let's see if I think about it. It was probably 2008. Yeah, that sounds. It was 2007 or 2008. It was on Lake Berryessa in Northern California, just above Napa, just above wine country, and it was late March. And I fished it with my dad actually, and we went out there, and our goal was to catch a limit. We caught a limit. We probably finished middle of the pack, but it's a day I'll never forget. I could remember running around that place. It was flat calm. We ended up catching some bedfish, catching some wormfish. It was just it was the beginning of the end because I'll never be able to get away from tournament fishing.
If that's one thing that we can all have in common as fishermen, right? It's like the first tournament that all of us roll up to. It could either go two ways. One, we absolutely become captivated and enthralled by it and just dive 100% in face first, and most of us fail and crash and burn. Or you run away and be like, I'm never doing this again because you never caught a fish. But when they say that, a week later, they're at the next tournament. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. The competition's everything for me, man.
Yeah.
I love fishing. I love fun fishing. And it's, if I catch a big one fun fishing, it's a great time. Or, I go out, catch 40, I have a blast. But when you put the competition in there for me, there's nothing better.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to take the summer off from fishing tournaments because I wanted to focus straight on guiding up here on Lake Erie and the Finger Lakes in New York State. And like the beginning of May came around, I was like, dang it, I got to sign up for some derbies. So I signed up for like 3 or 4 now. And I'm like, oh, here we go, that rabbit hole. Like,
oh yeah.
But
You can't stay away.
Can't wait. No, I can't wait because once you have a tiny bit of success, it's like all you want to do is fish tournaments.
Absolutely.
So, all right, let's jump into that now. You were a West Coast tournament angler. You had a ton of success, right, in the Wild West Trail, I think I read.
Yeah.
So,
did well in that one. Back when fished FLW when it was back there, the Toyotas now.
So what made you want to jump into the National Professional Fishing League? Because I always forget they put the T in front of it. So what made you want to make that jump and come east and southeast and northeast in their tournament trail? Because it's kind of spread out pretty well the way they do it. So what made you decide to jump ship from the West Coast and kind of commute all the way to the Midwest to the East Coast to fish a newly founded professional trail?
Yeah, it's kind of funny how it worked out. So backtrack a little bit. In 2020, I fished the Central Opens for Bassmaster. So that was kind of my first experience of fishing a circuit back east. I've come back east a few times to do what was then the FLW championships, but I've never fished, multiple events in one year. So I kind of wet my feet with the Bassmaster Opens, and I really liked it. I didn't do very well, but I really liked going to new places and trying to figure them out. That's one of my favorite things to do is to go to a new place, not necessarily blind, but do my research and all that, and then try to figure out the fish on a place that I've never put my boat in. So I did the opens. I was planning on doing the opens the following year as well in 2021, and I actually got a call from who is now my travel partner for the NPFL, Jake Boomer,
I'm
and he
sorry.
was like, I know, I gotta put up with him.
Great guy. I mean,
He is. We have a good time. But I got a call from him because I'd heard about the NPFL and all that, and I actually thought about putting my resume in when they first came out, and I just didn't end up doing it. I wanted to do the Bassmaster thing, do the opens and all that, and I got a call from him, and he was basically what the conversation was. How it went was, if you want to go do this, I'll do it with you. And he was like, I can get you in. All you gotta do is send in your resume, and they'll look it over, and I'm pretty sure they'll approve you for it. So, that night, talked to the wife and thought about it for a few days, and I went over where all the information I could on how they were going to do things and how it was going to go. I think the schedule was out. No, I can't remember if the schedule was out or not. Schedule didn't matter, but we decided to do it, give it a shot, because that's always, that's the dream, especially on the West Coast, is the dream is to go back east and compete at a high level. And, but the whole draw to it for me was fishing new places, fishing places that I've never been to, and that challenge, because, no matter what, anybody says, fishing your home bodies of water, it kind of gets stagnant after a little while, where you end up doing the same thing, because it works, right?
mm-hmm.
You're not gonna, and it kind of made me, I kind of just fell into a lull of I had success, and I'm gonna keep doing the same thing to get me that success, but it wasn't driving my it wasn't making my brain work very hard anymore. So the whole appeal to the NPFL for me was, fishing for bigger money, and then fishing new places. That was it, and just the challenge of it.
Yeah, and they did. From my understanding, kind of tuning in every event. I try to watch every one of them, at least here and there. And for a new organization, of course, they had hiccups. Everybody, I think, expected them possibly to have a few hiccups here and there, but I think the inaugural season went pretty well.
They're not going to hide it about the championship that we didn't have, but they made it right. I was a qualifier for that championship. They made it right, and besides that, I think they absolutely knocked it out of the park their first year.
And they were honest and open with all the anglers too about what was going on, which speaks volumes to the ownership of the league. They could just left you guys high and dry and be like, "We're done." Like,
absolutely. There was an easy way out there, and they didn't take it. They decided to do it the right way in my eyes, and I give them a ton of credit for that, and that's why I'm fishing it again this year.
Yeah, that was gonna be my next question, was due to the way that they responded to the issues that were at hand and the way they treated you guys. Is that the ultimate reason why you went back this season?
It is. I've never met an ownership group that was so invested in the anglers.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what their end goal with this is. They could, their end goal could be to sell it, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. What matters to me is the way they treat the anglers, and man, I remember the first tournament at Eufaula last year. Me and Jake were naturally running late to the first day of the first tournament, and they wanted everything to be right and they wanted everybody to be on time. So one of the owners, Brad Fuller, literally jumped in my truck and backed me into the water and said, "Hey, my keys are going to be, in the gas cap. Go get over there." And that really opened my eyes to how all in they are for the anglers, and they showed it all year long.
Yeah, that's actually awesome that the owner of the league jumped in
Mm-hmm.
your truck to back you in.
Yeah,
You won't
yeah.
see
It
that
was
anywhere.
no, you will not. That was it was pretty much at that moment I knew we were in good hands, and this thing was gonna go places.
Yeah. Well, let's hope that trend continues. Like a funny little story here before we continue forward. Half the time, you can't even get a friend to back you down the boat ramp because they want to get in the water and be ready to go. So it's like you're stranded, but good luck. And for the owner to step in and do that, that just speaks volumes to me.
It
So
does. It does,
that's an
man.
awesome story. So, kind of something unique to the TNPFL, right? Is the 3 day everyone competes. So, like, for the viewers and listeners that are listening to this, when you get to the Bass Opens, there's a massive cut after day 2. Or if you're fishing like the pro circuits, it's a cut after 2 and then a final cut on day 4. MPFL does it differently where they fish all 3 days. How do you feel about that, Brian?
When I first heard it, I had mixed feelings about it, because and honestly, it was for selfish reasons. You know, in my history, usually I'm pretty good at having a good first day, falling off a little bit the second day, and then if I fish the third day and I'm not gonna, if I'm not doing so, I just generally I decline throughout my tournament. So I
Mhm.
was actually really worried about it. I'm not one of the guys that uh, my weights get better throughout the tournament a lot of the times. So I was concerned about it. And the first again, going back to Eufaula, the first tournament last year, I think I was in check range in, whatever it was, the 20s. I was like, man, this sucks, because if
Here
there
we
was a
go.
cut, yeah, I was like, oh, I'm gonna blow it tomorrow. Terrible, terrible mental game. But I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me! I'm in check range, and here we go. We're gonna blow it on day 3, and there goes my money. Down that rabbit hole. Um, but I scrapped it together, and I ended up getting a check. And throughout the year, I totally changed my mind on how I felt about it. Uh, I think first of all, it really shows who's on them, and not so much in one way or another, but who can adapt throughout a tournament.
Mhm.
Um, you know, a lot of guys, and I'm one of them. I can usually after practice I could catch them the first day. If I'm on anything, I can catch them the first day all right. Second day it trails off a little bit, and then the third day I just kind of go fishing, and hope for the best. But the guys that can adapt throughout a 3-day tournament, they really do deserve to get a check. And when you have the full field, uh, and you're never really out of that tournament, uh, it forces you to really try to figure out how to adapt and how to change throughout 3 days of competition. Because I mean, if you've ever fished a multi-day tournament, you, very rarely do you ever catch them the same way on day 1 that you're going to catch them on day 2 or day 3. There's some similarities, but usually there's always an adjustment you have to make, or 2 or 3, to kind of follow the fish, either follow the fish or the weather changes, or fishing pressure, what have you. There's always going to be some sort of change in between competition days, and the longer you have the full field competing, um, the more change you're going to have to deal with, and that's when the anglers that deserve to get paid that week That's when they're going to make their money is day three. You know, because that's, I mean, you look at any tournament results in the history of bass fishing, and day three is always the hardest day for sure.
Oh,
And you know, I like I said, I'm long-winded, but I've changed my mind on it for sure. I really enjoy it, and you know, the added pressure of you know, knowing that you could fall out on day three too. You know, it adds more excitement,
oh,
and it really forces you to make a good adjustment. Um, you know, when I would make a top 10, say in what is it, a Toyota Series now,
yeah.
you know, the top 10 days, if I know I'm not in contention, you know, and I've been to where, you know, I got like 15 pounds to make up, guys just running away with it. I found myself just kind of going and having fun. You know, obviously I want to go move up, but, you know, there's not that pressure that,
Yeah.
that you would get knowing, because you can only drop to 10. You're
Yeah.
only
And
going to
let
drop
me
to
ask
10.
you, kind of like piggybacking off of that, when you're in that top 10, there's no pressure. Like you're in ninth place. You're like, oh, I could lose
Hmm.
$200 in that tournament. But you're like, well, I'll just go out and have fun, fish the way I want to fish. And if it aligns, I might be able to jump up 5 places too.
Hmm.
So it's like
Hmm.
you go into it much more relaxed. So you fish free. Do you see your land percentage go up on days like that, or like your hookup percentage? Like when you're free, you're just having fun. I feel like those are the best days you ever have on the water
Those
for
are
whatever
the best.
reason.
Those are the best days. And you just, it's because you just go fishing. You know,
Mhm.
how many times you show up, you know, you got a free weekend and you just go fishing for fun, and you're relaxed. You go, hey, that looks good. I'm going to go over there. Oh, you know, wind's blowing this way. I'm going to go throw a spinnerbait up there. And, you know, it's just easy on those
Mhm.
days.
Yeah.
But you know, when you can fall on that third day and you can fall out of check range, pressure's on,
Yeah.
and I love it. I love it. It makes you, it just, when you put yourself in situations like that, it makes you a better angler.
Yeah, I guess you could say like in reverse effect too. If you're sitting like 20 places out of check range, you're like, I'm just gonna have fun today. I'm fishing anyways. If I crack
Hmm.
like 20 pounds, oh, I might be able to sneak out a check here. Like, kudos. Like, this is
Yeah,
fun.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. It's awesome. It's awesome. I think it's something that more tournament circuits should adopt. I really do.
yeah.
Um, you know, it adds to the tournament. It really does. You know, and it gives those guys, it gives those guys, you know, maybe you're in 50 something place just out of a check on day two. You have that opportunity. You know, say you figured them out on day two. You have
Yeah.
that opportunity to move up. And I think I, I truly believe that's the guy. If you can catch them on day three and move up into check range, you're the guy that deserves to get paid.
Yeah.
Um, no doubt.
Because it's the hardest day period to catch
It
fish.
is the hardest day. Yes, the absolute hardest day to catch them.
And
Yeah,
let's also talk
and
about this. Day threes are usually on Saturdays. So now you have even more pressure on the water, right?
mm-hmm.
Because the locals are out, all the guides are out. They have guide trips on Saturdays. Your
Yep.
cat fishermen are out trawling around big
Oh yeah.
catfish lines because they're not working their 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
weekend
It's just
fishing is sorry, go ahead.
it's a whole nother dynamic
Yeah.
you have to worry about. Um, you know, it was really interesting at Pickwick. Pickwick really stands out in my head uh, because we went there in July, and they were on ledges, and you know, it was pretty much every fish. It wasn't like uh, earlier in the year where you know you got fish up shallow still, and or like just like at Watts Bar, where you had fish all the way in between. Pickwick was, they're on the ledge, they're on their deepest spot. They're going to be that year. Uh, and Saturday rolled around, and man, sometimes I would have to drive past 15 to 20 spots to finally land on a school that nobody was sitting on. Like it was stressful.
That's insane. You're just like,
It
will
was
I ever find
stressful.
fishable water?
Yeah,
Or find a buddy
I'm
like,
just,
hey, can I come in here?
yeah, please let me make a few casts.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point you brought up. Yeah, because it's usually on Saturday, and Saturdays are the busy days for sure.
And TVA chains, you also have to worry about how much water they pull as well for
Hmm.
those ledge
Hmm.
fish. So that's
Yeah.
an entirely different dynamic. So,
Oh,
well, ugh, yeah, I don't envy anybody who fishes the TVA chain. If I want to go, if I were to go down there and fish, I'd probably go Monday through Friday, so I know they're pulling current because everyone's running their AC
hmm.
units, and
Yep.
then on Saturday, Sunday, I'll drive myself back to New York. I think.
That's the way to do it, man. Plus, they'll be in it. You don't have to worry about any of the cabin cruisers, the yachts going down there waking you out.
Oh,
You got free reign of the lake to go and land on whatever school you want. Yeah, that's the way to TVA for sure.
perfect. Thanks for the advice. So now you just finished a tournament right last week that the Elite Series Pro Patty Walters won,
Hmm.
which is kind of crazy that he hopped over and decided to fish the MPFL with you guys. I wonder what his reasoning was for that. But Watts Bar, how did that tournament go for you? And did it play like into a wheelhouse of yours, or was it scattered? Like from what I witnessed, it was rather junky, like when it came to fishing style.
Yeah. Oh, it was an absolute junk fest for me. And if anybody knows me, knows my style of fishing, I like to have, if I have four rods on the deck, like it's getting crowded. I need to eliminate some rods.
Yeah.
My best tournaments are always when I have two rods and two or three rods and the same baits on two of them. Like when I'm dialed in like that, that's when I have my best tournaments. But Watts Bar was not that way. It was in between. Um, it, you could catch them out in 25 feet of water, and you could catch them in a foot and a half of water, or 6 inches, really. And anywhere in between too. There's just that post spawn. Waves are kind of coming out to the deeper spots, but they're stopping on the way. And then there's still a couple fish on beds, and there's a couple fish, hanging around bluegill beds up in the shallow. It was absolute junk fest. Um, I actually talked to Bradley Hallman. He was there doing the on the water stuff for us, and he would talk to us after every day. How'd your day go and all that stuff. And the final day, he asked me what I caught him on during the tournament, and I looked at my front deck, and I had about 15 rods on my front deck.
Oh, that's not good.
And
That's times
no,
5 what you like.
oh, it's bad. It was bad. And I looked at the front deck, and I was like, dude, I'm pretty sure I weighed fish on 9 of these rods, all different baits. On 9 different baits, I caught them a keeper fish on. And it was an absolute junk fish. I caught him I caught him flipping a Strike King Rage Bug. I caught him on a deep diver, 6XD, a big 8-inch bullworm, a spinnerbait, a swim jig, drop shot, shaky head. I weighed sexy dogfish, the Strike King walking bait. So that's 8. And I want to say there was one more that I weighed one of my fish on. So yeah, it
Has to be
was.
a wacky Senko. It's always a wacky Senko if you're
It might have been. It might have been. Yeah, I mean, but yeah, like I said, if anybody knows me, that is not the way I like to fish. So, coming out of there with a top 10 was an absolute. It was a great surprise to me
Yeah,
because
congrats
I
on
knew
that.
I wasn't. I appreciate it. I knew I wasn't on much going into that tournament, and I knew it was going to be the junk fishing tournament of the year, where you just kind of you go and fly by the seat of your pants
Just
and
turn
see
and
what.
burn all derby.
Yeah, that's what it was, man. And it was tough for me, but to come out of there with the 7th place, I'll take it any day of the week for sure.
Absolutely. Now, I didn't follow Watts Bar extremely close. I kind of tuned in here and there. Were you in the top 10 or 12 going into the final day, or did you make a big jump up and to get in?
I was in 14th the first day, and I fell a little bit the second day to 18th, and then the third day I ended up in 7th. So I had a good final day. That's one of the cool things about the MPFL, the way they do their flights on the third day. You earn your fishing time.
Oh, that's a cool
Because
point.
Yeah. So, day one, we go out in order. Day two, we reverse the order. And then day three, we go out. Boat number one is who's in first place. And then not only do they get to go out first, but they're going to be in the last flight to come in. So
Interesting.
you're gonna earn your fishing. So um, day three, Patrick Walters was in the lead. He went out boat number one. So that secure, if he's got a good spot, he deserves to be there first if that's where he wants to be. And then he also gets to weigh in last. He gets that last flight. So I think he got to come in at 5:15. I was in the
Talk about a
second
long
flight.
day.
Yeah, it is a long day, but man, you earn your fishing time, and I think it's the fairest way to do it. But I was fortunate to have that long day because it took me till about 1 o'clock to figure out what I needed to do to catch on that last day. I think I only had 3 keepers at about 12:30, and to figure them out, it took me the rest of the day to figure them out.
Well, good job overcoming the adversity and not
I appreciate it.
continuing on your downward trajectory that we are talking about earlier.
Oh, it
So,
was I was spinning out big time for sure. So it was
well, that
I was
I say that's one of my favorite parts about junk fishing derbies, though, is that you're never really out of it because all it takes is to pick up the right lure at the right time on any given cast. You can catch that next keeper you need. And then as soon as you set that rod down, the same thing can happen as soon as you
yeah
pick up the next one. I
yeah
personally hate junk fishing, but I love it at the same time because you just never know. There's like
yeah
a lot of
yeah.
randomness that goes with it, and it's kind of exciting.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the cool thing when I don't prefer it, but it's a great way to kind of figure the fish out. You're always staying fresh. You're never locked into one thing to where you miss out on other stuff. Because,
Right.
like I said, I would go out deep and I would catch one on a 8-inch bullworm, and then okay, I haven't gotten bitten in I haven't caught a keeper in a half hour. Let me go try up shallow and flip some wood, and then I'll catch a keeper there. Oh, it was actually it was pretty cool because a storm blew in that morning, and I hadn't thrown a spinnerbait at all in that whole tournament. But it was raining and it was windy, and I knew they were in that wood up shallow, and I tied on a spinnerbait, and second cast I catch a keeper on it. So that's the cool thing about those junk fishing tournaments is you're always staying fresh, and you're
Mhm.
never locked into one thing to where you'll miss out on something else. And that's honestly that's the way you want to. That's the way I try to practice too is keep everything fresh like that.
Yeah, it's a great point. So as we jump forward here, now you're what almost halfway through the second season on the MPFL circuit.
Mhm.
So, what would you say has been your most memorable or favorite tournament to this point in the MPFL series? And I want to take it one step further. After the MPFL, what is your most memorable or favorite tournament of all time or fishing memory?
Okay, I got that. Actually, the my favorite one uh, was Grand Lake last year to end our regular season. It was it was my best finish. I think I ended up in third, so I was really proud of that. The fishing wasn't great, but it was a way I really liked to fish. I picked up Strike King Sexy Dog, the one knock version,
Hmm.
and I got to bounce around, pick my trolling motor up 50 times in a day and just keying in on isolated pieces of wood, and cover on the bank. And man, that is my absolute favorite way to fish. I keep a power fishing technique in my hand, and I try to pull my trolling motor as many times as I can. Just keep fishing high percentage spot. There's nothing more fun to me than doing that. So, not only did I get to catch them a really fun way for me, but also had a great finish on top of that. So that was my favorite NPFL tournament so far. Um, but man, I mean, to be honest, they were all a ton of fun. To be fair, but my most memorable tournament fishing tournament, I guess, would have to be the Wild West Championship, their first year. I'd had I'd had some success, fishing those tournaments and fishing what was then the FLWs. Uh, and, I was always, top 10 here, top 10 there, get a check. I was consistent, I was pretty good at getting in the top 10, but I could never win one. And it always, I would always get those messages like, hey, just keep it going. If you keep getting in the top 10, you're going to win one eventually. And I was hoping that was the case, but it was like, when's my time? When is my time? Like, I just want to win one of these so bad. And it was funny because I had, growing up on the West Coast, you hear a lot about Lake Mead, and that's where it was. That's where that tournament was. It was on Lake Mead, and I tried to avoid Lake Mead uh, as much as I could. And I did a very good job. I'd never fished the Lake Mead before that tournament because it just scared the fire out of me, man. I mean, you hear about boats sinking at the U.S. Open, motors getting ripped off because they hit an island that's not marked. 6-foot waves. Like, I know you're used to that, but I'm from California. I'm not used to those big waves like that. I don't know how to drive in that stuff. I always, that lake really did scare me, just because of all the things I've heard. And, come to find out, it really is not that bad at all. It's actually an incredible tournament lake. But long story short, I practiced for 3 days. We had 3 days of practice. I had 2 keeper bites in those 3 days. If anybody knows Lake Mead, it is literally the toughest fishery you will ever fish on. But it's a great tournament lake because anybody can win any given day on that place. It's a truly fair playing field where local advantage really doesn't mean much. And anyway, I got 2 keeper bites in practice, and I ended up winning the tournament off of one of, I ran a pattern based off of one of those keeper bites. I got 1 keeper bite throwing a soft jerk bait in the back of the pockets with grass. And I did what I like to do with that. And that's just run as many as I can all day long and hope for the best. And I was fortunate enough to win that tournament, finally get that monkey off my back. And man, it was a super special moment and something I'll never forget.
Yeah, when it's your time, it's the best time. And superior gratification usually comes to those who wait. So, and in fishing, we have no choice of waiting. So, like, the gratification's always great unless you win it on your first bout, which then it's like, oh, well, how can I stop this? But
yeah.
So
it's what keeps me coming back. That's for sure.
It's awesome. So now we're gonna jump back, kind of backwards here, and we moved out from the West to the East Coast to fish tournaments. How did learning how to fish on the West Coast help you achieve all of the success that you're having in the limited time that you've fished the Midwest to the East? What do you attribute it to?
Man, that's a great question. And it's something I actually talk about a lot. Like if I'm talking to high school kids or doing a seminar wherever. In California, more specifically in Northern California, we are so incredibly lucky to have the lakes we have around us. And I truly think it's one of the best training grounds that there is for building a bass angler. The West Coast in general, and then, if you really delve into it, Northern California, you won't find much more of a diverse group of bodies of water than in Northern California. We got tidal fishery, which is, you're already limited on tidal fishery because there's only so many states that actually touch the ocean. So we have a tidal fishery, California Delta. We have the natural big bass factory at Clear Lake, which actually it correlates to so many lakes back east. It's pretty crazy. We have all our mother lode lakes, which are spotted bass and largemouth, kind of like, they're almost like Table Rock, Bull Shoals kind of lakes where, you're fishing rocks and, You got to know how to fish rock transitions, stuff like that, channel swings, all that stuff.
High mountain reservoir type bodies of
Yeah,
water.
yeah, exactly. And then we got the true spotted bass fisheries, Lake Shasta, Lake Oroville, which Lake Shasta is my favorite body of water, and the spotted bass is my favorite fish to catch. And knowing, training myself throughout the years on those bodies of water, that really gives you a full circle confidence in all your techniques. Because if I go to the Delta, I got to know how to throw a chatterbait. I got to know how to throw a top water. I got to know how to flip grass. If I go to Clear Lake, I got to know how to fish docks. I got to know how to fish ledges. There's actually some really good ledges in Clear Lake. It doesn't have the current like a TVA, but they set up the same way. We got rock piles out there, so you got to know how to fish deep and shallow. You got to know how to throw a frog up there. And then we go to those motherlode lakes where you got to know how to throw a swim bait there. If you want to compete and go up to Shasta, you got to know how to finesse fish, throw a Nico rig, throw a drop shot, stuff like that. And at least for me, I think I came out a very versatile angler because of that. And like, it's the same thing I always say, Northern California really does breed that really versatile angler where I am just as confident with 50-pound braid and a flipping stick as I am with 6-pound test and like a Nico rig, something like that, finesse fishing. And that's what it's really, it really, when you have a schedule like we have in the NPFL where we go from, like last year, we go from Eufaula to Pickwick, we go to Texas, you gotta go flip them. You gotta go up to Wisconsin and go throw some finesse stuff and go back down to Grand Lake. And now we're fishing wood and rocks. And then we go to this year. We've had Cumberland, which is big smallmouth on Highland Reservoir. And then we have Hartwell, which is spotted bass fishing and blueback herring fishing. And then we just came from Watts Bar, which is TVA, and it ended up being junk fishing. Having confidence in everything in your boat is it's been so crucial for me, because I can go and if I see the scenario where I need to go pick up a square bill, I have 100% confidence in it. And that's from my days at Clear Lake, where they eat a square bill. Or if I go to Florida, I was at Florida for the first Bassmaster Open this year in Kissimmee, and I had to go pick up a flipping stick and go punch hyacinth bass to catch them on the first day. 100% confidence in that, and that comes from the Delta. I've seen those scenarios, and seeing those scenarios, as well as doing my research and figuring out, what I need to be looking for. I think that's the biggest advantage I've had coming from the West Coast, because I've never seen these places before. We get 2 or 3 days to look around before I fly back and before official practice, and usually those are just kind of scout out what the lake looks like. Is it treacherous? Do I need to look for boat lanes, or what do I need? Navigation, I guess I should say. I don't do a lot of fishing on those days. I'll graph around and look for brush piles, whatever it may be. And then I got 3 days to break it down and find them. So being versatile and having confidence with every rod you have in your rod locker, it's kind of what I built my fishing career on.
Yeah. It's like the timeless saying in fishing, right? Like, nobody does the exact thing the same, but if you have confidence in what you're doing, anybody can catch them. As long as you have confidence in your tools, your equipment, you can catch them. And I mean, any tournament you watch on live streams, right? If you watch it, for the most part, unless you're on a ledge body of water, like it seems like every tour is on currently, they're either burning like a crankbait or a hair jig or a football jig. But if you go to like a diverse body of water that's not a TVA chain, like you'll see the top 10 all doing different things usually. There might be some things mixed in, but they'll be fishing it completely different.
Absolutely.
So like And that's the craziest part to me about fishing is the fact that nobody is wrong in how they do it as long as you personally have confidence in what you're doing.
Absolutely.
So,
100%.
so we'll kind of move forward here again, but you already said your favorite thing to do is fish topwater around trees and laydowns, and I'm assuming probably riprap and like stuff that kind of correlates in
Yeah.
there together.
Anything. Yeah.
But
Anything.
what made you become so heavy in loving the topwater technique? Is it just the blow ups, or is it just the fact that it gets bit all day long and that it's usually your biggest fish that bite it throughout the day, and it's not
That's
just a morning bait?
Yeah, that's the key there, and that's always the biggest misconception, right? Is
Yeah.
I'm gonna pick up my top water until the sun comes up and then put it down and go slow, and that's just not the case, man. I get my biggest top water bites from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I don't know if it's just because when it's casting the shadow straight down. I don't know if that's just when big ones like to feed. I don't really ask questions. I just know I've noticed from years of doing it, your biggest bites are going to come in the middle of the day. But it's a technique, especially if you're doing it all day, like I was doing it on Grand. It's a technique where you have to stay mentally engaged in it the whole time. Um, if you look away, if you drift off, and you miss a fish boiling on it, or you just miss something that happened during your retrieve, that's a chance that you might have missed a chance at winning the tournament there, because that could have been the
Mhm.
biggest fight you get all day. So just the fact that you have to be so mentally engaged with it, you have to pay attention, and then put that on top of throwing it around isolated cover, isolated wood, where you have to really be on your casting game that day. Uh, every day you do it, and then running around like a crazy man, which is what I love to do. Put all those three things together. Like that is my ideal day to go bass fishing, and then obviously we love the topwater gloves too.
Yeah. Yeah. There's it's something that once the water hits, like it's weird up here in New York, and I'm talking like Finger Lakes and stuff in
Hmm.
our inland lakes, not the Great Lakes. Um, there's something about when that water hits like 63 degrees and they get post spawn, and then they'll eat nothing but a top water. So I just hold it all day long, and it'll be like slick, calm, bright blue, sunny skies. You're walking a spook, and you see, thump, you're like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
this is
I love
awesome.
it. I love it. Yeah, I actually we do a ton of topwater, walking bait fishing like that for spotted bass.
Yeah.
Once that water, like you said, about 63 degrees, man, all the way through the summer, that's how you're going to catch some of your biggest spotted bass uh, throughout the year. And, not just throwing it at the bank, but if you have like a long point, like long flatter point, you throw it off the end of it, you have no idea what's sitting off the end of that thing
Yeah.
in 20 feet over 100. It could be the biggest spotted bass of your life. So it's not just for largemouth up shallow either. It's such a versatile bait. You can catch them anywhere on that thing. It's my favorite. It really is.
I have like one like distinct topwater memory that always comes back to me every year, and I get like a 3-day window to do it. It's burning a whopper plopper and having 5-pound smallies just explode on it.
When that happens, you just give me a call and I will hop on a plane. That
Like
is awesome.
it the there has to be a mayfly hatch, and it
Okay.
literally lasts for like 3 days, and I've hit it
Perfect.
twice on the head, and it's just ridiculous. Like, and I figured it out. I was pre-fishing for a tournament. I just wanted them to show themselves on like riprap walls, and I'm
Hmm.
burning the 110 size whopper flopper and bone. And I saw one miss it, and I'm like, he missed it by like 15 feet. So I just keep burning it because I threw a waypoint, and he hit it 3 feet from the boat, and it was almost a 6-pounder. And I'm like, what just happened? But both flipped it in. Next cast, 10 feet in, like burning it like they do those 10 and 6XDs
Yeah.
as fast as I can. Just explodes, blows it like 10 feet out of the water. I'm just like, this is fun. I did it all day long. Just
sounds
just
terrible.
reefing on them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And
Now, who would want to do that all day?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm like, I can't wait to do it again. I'm actually gonna start trying to do it here in the next couple days, I think, because it's right around that time for it to kick off. So it's gonna be fun.
Well,
But
let me know. I'll hop on a plane.
now we know your favorite technique, and we kind of dived into it. What is your least favorite bass technique? Like tournament, fun fishing. Which one do you dread throwing the most?
The drop shot.
From the West Coast, you hate the drop shot.
Yeah, it's weird, man. Because I mean, drop shot on a spinning rod is probably my least favorite thing. I throw a drop shot on a bait caster actually quite a bit.
I love power shotting that way.
Power shotting, yeah. We catch a ton of big ones on the Delta, Clear Lake, and I got no problem with that. It's just when you drop down to like 6 pound test and you got to shake a spinning rod, and I don't know, because I can throw a Nico rig, a nail weighted Ocho. I can throw that all day till I'm blue in the face. I got no problem with that. It's one of the techniques I throw pretty much all winter for spotted bass. But man, when you put the weight below the bait and you rig up a drop shot, I am just not the guy for that. I don't know. I can do it, if the scenario comes up where I need to. Yeah, we're going to Saginaw Bay in about 3 weeks. Like, I'm gonna have some drop shots rigged up, and maybe some 4 to 6 pound large or smallmouths can change my mind on how much I like drop shotting. But as of right now, it's just I don't look forward to doing it.
When's the Sandusky event?
That is the end of August.
End of August. So at the end of August, before you fly home to California, come up to Buffalo afterwards. We'll go drop shotting for a day. And
perfect.
We'll get you dialed.
I'm in. I am so in. It's something I really need to work on. It's a great technique. It catches, especially for those northern fish, and they just love that thing.
What I found, like, I just put a video out on, I hate to like shamelessly plug my own YouTube stuff here, but I just put a video out on it. The most important thing to drop shot fishing, period, is the rod and having the perfect action to it, because you never feel them bite unless they're like coming from 100 feet away. You need a rod that you just see that tip just ever so slightly. And then
for sure,
the lighter the line, the better.
Absolutely.
Like there's days I'm using 4 and 5 pound test on Lake Erie, drop shotting smallies.
So we do that a lot. Yeah, no, I know that whole trick, man. We do that a lot at the desert, and it's scary. Brutal. It's brutal, but like, you got to get bit, right?
Yep. And the lighter you go, the more natural your presentation becomes to those fish. So that's actually very surprising. I was expecting you to say something like flipping a jig, but I'm like, oh, it's Delta. So I was like, there's no way it's a drop shot. Maybe it'd be like a Ned ring or something, because
I don't mind a Ned ring. I really
which
don't.
is funny. So
don't mind a Ned ring. I didn't like it when it first came out. I thought it was the dumbest thing in the world.
And then you threw it and you're like, what?
Look at the power of this thing. I am an idiot. It was like when the Whopper Flopper first came out. My buddy showed it to me. I was like, that is the dumbest thing in the world. You couldn't pay me to buy it. And then I'm out there throwing my walking bait, and he's throwing a Whopper Flopper, and he's got me down like 20-1. I'm like, okay, I'll buy one.
Larry Dahlberg was onto something.
Oh, man.
Another bait, though, you can think of in that whole realm of like, this thing will never work, is a Chatterbait. It was on the market for like 10 years before Brett Hite crushed them at Lake Seminole, and then everybody started buying them.
I had it was like the original Chatterbait before Z-Man got it, all that stuff.
Oh, the Phoenix one, right?
No, it was before that one.
Wow.
Like, it was the original one. And I was throwing it. I remember throwing. I couldn't have been 13 years old, 12, 13 years old, maybe a little older. I don't know. I was young. I was on the Delta. I tied it on. I threw it for like 10 casts. I was like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen in the world. I cut it off and tied a spinnerbait back on it. All I needed to do. I was like, oh, if only I would have thrown that thing
Yeah.
and just gave it an honest shot, because when that thing first came out on the Delta and people really started catching them, like it was, you couldn't compete with it.
Yeah. It's like, what'd you catch him on? Big swim bait? Nope. Not telling you. then you see
Seriously.
then you see a deck full of just like, damn, I had that thing 5 years ago. Why didn't I
Oh,
throw that more?
oh, I was so, yeah. I
Shooting
think about it
yourself in
all
the
the
foot.
time. Like,
Oh,
how much money did I miss out by not throwing that stupid little thing? Oh
oh
well.
man. Well, I remember like my first chatterbait experience. It was the summer of 2009. I was fishing in tournament and I caught the biggest largemouth of my life at that time. I'd only been bass fishing like 2.5 years, and it was a 6.5 pounder, one of our little Finger Lakes, which is a big
Hmm.
fish for New York. But the guy I'm fishing with is throwing a frog pattern, like original chatterbait. And I'm like,
No
this
way.
thing is the god ugliest thing I've ever seen in my life. And he was crushing 2 pounders. Like every cast he caught a fish. I swear for like the first 3 hours of the day. And like that is the
Amazing.
dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. Like
Yeah.
that will never work again. He threw it like every tournament for like 2.5 years and caught him every tournament. And then
Hmm.
eventually people started catching on.
It's, yeah. When you show, I mean, look, the Alabama rig. When you show a fish, a bass, something new that they just, that first of all, it has to work, make sense. And then it's brand new. It's the most incredible thing uh, in bass fishing. But the cool thing is that, Mother Nature, they protect themselves. She's
Hmm.
looking out for the bass because, I know everybody thought the Alabama rig was going to kill bass fishing and all that stuff, and the chatterbait was the same way. Like it was hard to compete with. Everything's hard to compete with when it first comes out. Uh, but I mean, they get conditioned, just like everything else, just like a crankbait, spinnerbait. I'm sure when those first came out, they were amazing, and now
Yeah.
they're just part of the, they're part of the tool.
Yeah.
They're
Well,
part of the.
we can go one step even deeper here. Everyone's so into electronics and offshore fishing now, and now you're
Hmm.
starting to see that shift back shallow. And those
I
big
love it.
offshore piles of fish are like gone, and everyone's like, "Where are the fish?" And
Hmm.
that guy's laughing, flipping a jig, and in 6 inches of water, just smashing giants. Be like, "You fools! I
I
told
love
you,
it.
I told you this 20-year-old technique is going to come back one day."
Absolutely,
Uh,
absolutely. It's just it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen where you're not gonna. I don't think it'll ever. Obviously, offshore fishing is never gonna go away. It's where the majority of the bass live when the time is right.
mhm.
But I think being shallow um, during those traditional offshore times of year, I think it's like you said, it's already becoming a very viable option during those times of year, and I'm happy for it. I'm a bank beater at heart. Like, w- great example. I was at Watts Bar, and I'm catching them so many different ways, but flipping shallow wood, throwing spinnerbait on shallow wood, throwing a swim jig on shallow wood, and I would have to go down like a quarter-mile stretch of bank, and I would run into two trees, two laydowns that had it. And so it was one of those things where it kind of sucks me in. And during the tournament, like, oh, this is going to take a little while because I got to find these fish. And I would just keep the final day. I kept that in my hand till like 12:30, and that's when I had my three keepers on, were those shallow baits. And I finally had to, I literally sat down on the boat. I was like, we are not going to blow this. We're not going to be an idiot. We need to go fish 5 to 10 brush piles. That's all we need to do. If they're not there, then we can go back to the bank and beat it up. And the you know, first brush pile I pulled up on, I caught one out of it, and I was like, okay, I can calm down. But um, the bank it's still a very, very viable option, and it'll continue to be a very, very viable
Yeah.
option, even in those offshore events.
There's always honey holes on the bank where they'll even reload depending on
Hmm.
how it
Oh,
sets up.
absolutely. I
And
had one tree. I had one tree at Watts. Sorry to cut you off. I had one tree at
No, you're
Watts
fine.
Bar. I probably caught. Granted, they weren't very big, but I probably caught 30 fish out of that tree over 3 days.
That's awesome.
Just one
Every
lay
time you
down.
went back.
Yep. Every time I went back. And it was, I was obviously the perfect tree where it was on a point where current kind of blew underneath it. And the only two keepers I got out of that tree, I lost them both. But just like you said, there's spots on the bank that they won't rival the best offshore spots, but they can compete with a lot of offshore
Yeah,
spots.
because a lot of times you have them all to yourself.
Absolutely.
Because everybody is so into live scoping and side scanning and down imaging, trying to find that massive mythological school of fish that seems to be these days. Because, everybody reads magazines about the TVA chain in the early 2000s and how like magical it was. You can go out there and just grind your way to 150 fish a day. And now it's like, I got 6 bites today. Like, yeah, I'd rather go to the bank and look for stuff and get 6 or 10 bites. They might not be giants, but all it takes is that one, and all it takes is one swing of the bat, and you're going to catch a big one because big ones live shallow all year for one reason. There's always food shallow.
There's always
food. So, oh man, give me a jig and let's go have some fun.
I'm in.
It's funny, like Bailey, the podcast partner here, makes fun of me all the time. He's like, "Why don't you want to go catch smallmouth today?" I'm like, "Because it's 7 minutes from my house and I can do it whenever I want. If I want to fish a spinning rod, I'm like, I'm gonna go drive an hour and a half and go flip some grass and see what I can catch." I'd much rather drive an hour and a half and go catch some largies, even if I only get 5 all day. It's just something different.
Behind the top water, like flipping grass it's up there. It's tied. It's probably tied with a top water, and flipping grass is combat fishing. You are truly, if you got the right grass, you are fishing for some of the biggest bass in the lake.
Yeah, you would, before they decided to carpet bomb almost every one of our Finger Lakes and kill all the grass, we had Eurasian milfoil like growing out to like 25 foot of water that would canopy. And they would be from 4 foot to like 25. You could catch them anywhere but now it's all gone. There's only like 2 or 3 lakes with it. Yeah.
It's so sad.
It's so sad.
That is so sad. Yeah, they do that at the Delta a lot too. You'll have the best stretch of grass on the whole place, and then you come back a week later in the tournament, it's all dead.
It's so sad. My favorite though is like you would get those boat lanes from like 4 foot of water up to like 20 foot where they just drive the pleasure boats through. And I would take a big walking bait like the Sexy Dog or a spook, and I would walk it in those boat lanes. And if they miss, I would follow them up with a Chatterbait. And
that's awesome.
You'd watch them come out of the grass and eat it. And like that was such a fun bite.
That's the deal, man. Grass fishing is so much fun.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm like dying, and I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna be on Lake Erie like 25 in the next 30 days. And I'm like, this is my favorite time of year to go largemouth fishing too.
I hear you. Yeah, when we were at Saginaw, I had to literally force myself to get off of, get out of the rivers and get out of the canals, because I mean, that is by far one of the best largemouth fishing spots I've ever seen. It does not,
but they're all 2-pounders, right?
Yeah, they are, but man, I love setting a hook. And I had to force myself to stay offshore and try to, or not offshore, but stay smallmouth fishing. And it was the hardest thing ever, because I knew anytime that I could pull up to the bank and go find some sort of cover, I was going to get bit. And I'm an absolute addict when it comes to shallow water cover fishing. So that was tough for me for sure.
Fun. Sign me up any day. And that's where me and Bailey are like really good tournament partners. Last year we fished an entire trail together. And it's because we fish very similarly, but we think differently. Like I'd rather be in like 4 to 6 foot of water, and he wants to be in like 8 to 12. But the same techniques work in both places. So we could
For sure.
zigzag, and I would catch him here and he would catch him there. And I'm like, this is
That's
perfect
awesome.
complementary fishing.
Yeah.
But we're going to get into one last question here, and then I'm going to, well, we have one last question that I told you about, and then I have a surprise question at the end.
Oh,
That it's
perfect.
for all new people to the podcast. It's Bailey's brainchild. So, what are you looking forward to the rest of the year? And then what are your future goals and plans, not just in the NPFL, but for Bryant Smith in his future of bass fishing?
So it's actually been, so I had a busy beginning of the year, right? We had the Southern Opens for bass, which is the only ones I was able to do this year, and then the NPFL. And I'm sitting pretty decent in the points for the Opens. And all I can think about, like the tournament that I will lose sleep over, is that last one at Hartwell, because that is the make or break for the Elite Series, which my dream is to be fishing the NPFL and the Elite Series. I think that would, I don't know, that would be the absolute pinnacle, for sure. So that tournament is the tournament that I'm looking forward to, and then that is obviously the overall, the ultimate goal is to get to the Elite Series and just see, like, I want to see how I stack up against. We have a ton of incredible anglers on the NPFL, but man, that Elite Series, like those are some sticks over there too. So I want to see how I stack up, and just growing up watching the Elite Series, uh, watching the Bassmaster Classic, all that stuff. I'm absolutely in love with that whole deal, and that's the ultimate goal, is to get there. So
Awesome.
hopefully everything goes right and at Hartwell, and we can have some really, really fun decisions to make the next year.
Well, my fingers are crossed for you, buddy.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, good luck at Hartwell. So now here comes the very last question. If you could sit down with anybody from any time frame throughout the history of the world and have a steak, any type of steak that you want, and a beer, who are the 3 people you would invite to your table and why?
Oh my goodness.
Loaded.
You hit me with the hardest one.
This is why we don't tell you about it, because then you can think about it, right?
Yeah.
So it's a very Johnny on the spot type question.
Yeah. I mean, so I'll explain it, I guess. My whole life is revolved around bass fishing. So they're probably going to be 3 bass fishermen.
That's fine.
Bass fishermen. Honestly, Ray Scott would be one of the first ones, and that would just be to thank him for giving me an opportunity. He's given us all an opportunity to fish for a living. The absolute coolest thing in the world, like, to say you get to fish for a living. How do you beat that?
Yeah.
Let's see. Who would be next? D. Thomas. I'd like to go sit down with D. Thomas, the father of flipping, the guy who invented the flipping technique, pioneered it, and really changed fishing. And it's, like I said before, it's one of my favorite techniques. And I would love to, sit down and have a little chat with him about how that all went down, and what he felt was his impact on bass fishing, because those two alone have changed bass fishing for the better. And I would love to sit down with those two for sure. And then the last one, actually, I'm going to change my last one. It's not going to be a bass fisherman. It's going to be Tiger Woods, because in his prime, his mental game was the most incredible thing. I personally, I think it was the most incredible thing in sports. Yeah, the way he was never flustered. He was never phased by anything. He just did it he just did what he needed to do, and I would love, because I struggle with the mental game for sure. So I would love to get a few pointers from him too. But yeah, Ray Scott, D. Thomas, and Tiger Woods.
Be quite the interesting table.
That would be a really interesting table.
Yeah. And I think you can even go like one step further if we could give you like a fourth, like a wild card. If you're looking for that mental game, Kobe Bryant, like that guy was an insane, like mental game, just always in it, not afraid to lose, put it all on the table. Ultimate desires to win. And I think we could say that about most like touring bass fishermen, right? Like, you have to be afraid not to lose because we're always going to lose.
It's if you're a bass fisherman and you do it for a living, that's what you do. You're a professional loser.
We're the best losers in the world. So,
that's it, man. That's it. Like, yeah, Kobe Bryant would be an awesome one.
Yeah,
for sure.
And I hate to interject that on you, and I apologize for that, but like whenever somebody mentions Tiger Woods and like the mental side of things, I'm like, then instantly my mind goes to Kobe, and I'm like, that guy was a freak all in himself, like just insane.
He hated losing, but he knew how to lose to get better. And then his work ethic was, I don't know if there's a professional athlete that worked harder than him.
No.
You put that kind of work ethic with that kind of talent, you could see his career. It's
unrivaled.
Yep, absolutely.
Unrivaled. So, well, Bryant, I want to say thank you for coming on with us here today, and appreciate it. We look forward to having you on again. Good luck at Hartwell. Thanks for taking the hour. We went a little over, and I tried to get Boomer to like send me a story to bring up that might be like slightly embarrassing or something that happened, but he never got back to me. So
good. That's because he was stuck at an airport last night.
Oh no! So if he would have responded when I knew Bailey couldn't answer, I was going to have him like surprise guest and tell a Bryant Smith story.
That would have been a train wreck.
Yeah, he didn't respond in time. So, but I wanted to make that happen. So maybe what we can do at the end of the season is have a NPFL season recap with you and Boomer.
I'd love to do that. That'd be awesome, man. We have some good times for sure.
Yeah, and you tour together, so I'm sure you see a lot of crazy stuff because, that's what happens out there in the world. The wide world of bass fishing. So
that's it. We are an absolute disaster when we are together. So yeah, that'd be a fun show, man. We got some great stories for that.
Love it. So we'll get that set up here towards the end of summer. And for now, I'm just going to end it here. So thanks everybody for tuning in and listening. If you don't mind, subscribe, hit a comment down below, or leave a review if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. We greatly appreciate it. But for now, until next time.